Yes. All right, my friends, thank you for being here. And today Parsha is Beshalach, which is chapter 15, and contains the Song of the Sea and so on, Split of the Sea. So let's see some point here, and then we read the section. The Parsha start. Actually, if I had to put a title to our class today, I would say the power of reality, and you will see why. Now, the parsha start by saying that Pharaoh was the one. Pharaoh set free the people, meaning the people of Israel. The term people is derogatory term, it's like slaves. Okay, so Pharaoh is attributed to the sending, to the Exodus. Wow, the rabbi asked, how is it possible? It should have said, ideally it should have said that God, Hashem sent Israel out of Egypt. Why Pharaoh? So ideally, it should be attributed to Hashem. Not only that, if you look at the Torah text, it repeats no less than 50 times that Hashem is the one who sent Israel out of Egypt. And suddenly here is Pharaoh. So the answer is concession to reality. Although it's theologically and religiously true that Hashem is the one who redeemed Israel, and this is how it happened. But in reality, on the ground, it was Pharaoh. So it's a concession to reality. Let's move on, and the next verse says, and Elohim, so that Elohim led them not through the land of Philistine, which is a close way, but took them out of to the desert, because he saw that the people will be fearful of waging war. They're not ready. And although they were armed, the verse says they were armed to the tooth, but the spirit was not ready for war, and they will return to Egypt. Again, I quote now the Midrash, and the Midrash says, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, ideally, it should have said, wow, the Jews came up, Israelites came up with the upper hand, very emboldened by the miracle that happened in Egypt. They're relying on Hashem, they will wage war. This is how it should have been. Reality, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, it was not so. They were armed. They were a bunch of beaten down slaves, below spirit, not used to freedom. Go and lead them to war. They're not ready, so that's why Elohim concesses to the reality, And it took him out to the desert to train them for the next couple of years or 40 years. So again, the difference between what is ideally should have happened, ideal belief that what you believe that should have been, and the reality that was the opposite. The reality was very miserable to the in sense of this Israelite. They were not ready, and there is a concession to reality. Reality is paramount. Or you may say, okay, the miracle, perhaps the miracle of the Egypt were not strong enough to impact them. Maybe they needed a bigger miracle, a clearer miracle that will strengthen their belief in God for a long time. So lo and behold, Hashem led them to the splitting of the sea, which is a huge miracle, clear miracle compared to all the Egypt, all the miracle that happened in Egypt. Here Hashem split the sea, drowned the entire fleet of the entire army of Egypt in the water. As Yitro later would say, it was clear measure for measure. You, Pharaoh, drowned the children of Israel, and now your army is drowned. Clearly, it's a miracle. Can't explain by nature, not easily. And you see the hand of Hashem. And indeed, this miracle, for the first time, caused them to believe in God in Moses. It says so. And they believed, but once they saw the splitting of the sea, they believed in God in Moses, his slave, so much that the spirit was so elated that they sang the song of the sea. You sing the song when your spirit is really, really high. Wow, that's a big change, a miracle that should impact the life for years, not forever. Well, it didn't happen like that. Let's see. Let's read the verse, chapter 15, 22. Who wants to read a few verses? Volunteer to read 22, 15, 22. Would anyone volunteer to read?
I got it, Rabbi.
Yes, go ahead.
Moses caused Israel to journey from the Sea of Reeds, and they went out to the wilderness of Shur. They went for a 3-day period in the wilderness, but they did not find water.
Yeah, go on.
They came to Marah, but they could not drink the waters of Marah because they were bitter. Therefore, they named it Marah. The people complained against Moshe, saying, "What shall we drink?"
Yeah, go on.
He cried out to Hashem, and Hashem showed him a tree. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. There he established for the nation a decree and an ordinance, and there he tested it. He said, "If you hearken diligently to the voice of Hashem, your God, and do what is just in his eyes, give ear to his commandments, and observe all his decrees, then any of the diseases that I placed in Egypt, I will not bring upon you.
Okay, all right. So let's focus on that section. So this is after the big elation, yeah. They sing a song to God. They saw a miracle. Wow, a great miracle. And then it says 22, Moses made them, in Hebrew it says, Moses made them travel. That's strange. So they didn't want to leave. So you would think they were so elated, they didn't want to leave the place. No, Rashi says they didn't want to leave because of the loot. They were gathering the loot, the gold, and all the precious stones that floated in the sea. Why should they leave? Wow. So I tell you that this elation didn't last long. Suddenly they fall right away to mundane thing as collecting loot. And they should have it, should have done it. So Moses made them leave by force, so to speak, commanded them to leave. And then what? So that still they left, and still the memory of the miracle of the split of the sea should have been on their mind. But it took them 3 days to walk in the desert and there's no water. Well, of course, if there's no water, you ask for water, you pray for water. But they came, let's see what happened. And they came to Marata. Mara is bitter in Hebrew. The place called Mara because the water was bitter, and they couldn't drink water because it's bitter water. That's why the place is called Mara. And by verse 24, the people complain. So they didn't just ask for water or pray for water. They became angry, the Rashi said. They came to Moses angry. Well, we want water, otherwise we go back to Egypt. Well, so the impact of the splitting of the sea is actually evaporated here. How is it possible? So here the Rambam, Maimonides, said, well, that's a common thing that happened to anyone who believe in God because of miracle. When you use miracles to believe in God, you are elated for a while, but then when you think about it, most people will try to rationalize. They will say, oh, it was not really a miracle. It happened because of this, because of that, because of some natural thing, or because of witchcraft, depending what your beliefs are. But the impact of miracle, the Rambam says, in general, doesn't last long. And that's why we until today, we don't believe in God because of the miracle that happened in Egypt, or because of the miracle that happened in the desert, because we were not there. Who knows what happened? So our mind is always try to rationalize it. Today, of course, we rationalize the split of the sea because of some tsunami and explosion of an island in the Mediterranean and so on. So we have all kind of rationalization to the miracle. So that's a common reaction to mankind. So miracle don't last because the reality of mankind, the way we build takes over, and the impact of the miracle doesn't last. So that's what happened here. So in that case, Hashem needed, if Hashem wanted to strengthen their belief, he should have made, or he just going to make a bigger miracle. Maybe the miracle of the splitting of the sea was not enough. So let's see what happened next. So when Moses prayed to Hashem, he showed them a tree, and the tree was a bitter tree, the Midrash says. So he took the tree and he threw that into the water, and they were sweetened. So that's the Ramban Noahide said, this is a miracle inside miracle, a complicated miracle. Not only he sweetened the water, but he sweetened the water by bitter tree. That's one explanation. So it's a greater miracle, and it says complicated. So do you think this will happen? Help? No. Because they drank the water, but then Hashem says, if you listen to me, all the thickness that I placed on Egypt, I will not put on you. It means they were fearful. Listen to that. They were fearful that Hashem now turn out and bring all the plague of Egypt on them. That's kind of a weird deviation. The impact of the miracle in Egypt were done to increase the belief in God. Turn out they were fearful that the plague will hunt them. So Hashem says, no, I'm not going to do it as long as you keep you follow me. So it means that even such a complicated miracle did not help him. So if somebody want to base his faith on miracle, remember that story and remember the Rambam, who said, yeah, that can elate you for a little while, but surely later on, if you're a rational person, you will tend to put a question, to put a salt. You need a little more pepper and salt on that to believe in it. So I'm continuing with the Rambam. So the Rambam says, okay, Hashem decided then to bring them a bigger miracle. A miracle that will impact them so much that they will remember believing in Hashem forever and ever and ever. What was a miracle? It says giving them the Torah. Hashem will take them in few months to Mount Sinai. I'm quoting the Rambam. And then on Mount Sinai, they will face a big miracle. It says they will hear Hashem talking to them by himself. 600,000 people hearing that. His voice saying only the first line. I am God that took you out of Egypt. And they were so fearful they didn't want to hear more. So they heard the voice of Hashem, and Rambam quotes there what the Torah says. The Torah says, Hashem says to Moses, go up to the mountain and I will speak to you and to them in the thickness of the cloud so that they will hear my voice and they will believe in you and me forever. That is a miracle of Sinai. That 600,000 people saw that heard it, and a word was a clear miracle. And who can deny such a miracle? You cannot explain it by tsunami. You cannot explain it by some witchcraft. It's clearly a miracle that should last forever. We will see if that was true. So let's go back to our section. How does Hashem plan to bring the Torah? It's right here. This is the beginning of giving the Torah. It says, verse 25, he threw the water into the water, and there, it says, there he put for them a statute and law. Chok u'mishpat. He gave a statute of law. What kind of statutes of law he gave? So he's going to give them the Torah in steps. Also recognize reality. You cannot give the Torah right away to impose it on somebody on his head, because stepwise. So what was the first step they gave the Torah? Statute and law. What kind of statutes and law he gave? The Ramban said, again, Noahide said, he gave them all the law of the 7 commandments of Noah. Dinim. Remember, number 5 is dinim, justice between man and man. So he gave them all the law of justice, man and man. And then, not only that, the Sanhedrin, Talmud in Sanhedrin says, not only the statute of men and men, but also honoring your father and mother. That's commandment number 5. And the Sabbath, commandment number 4. Here is a diagram that I put for you. Do you see that diagram? The diagram shows you that the 10 Commandments. On the right side, behind my head, are the commandment between man and man. That's the second tablet. It says, "Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery." Number 6. Number 7. Thou shalt not steal. And thou shalt not bear witness, false witness. And thou shalt not covet. So all the commandments of man and man, going from up to down, he gave them those commandments, which are basically the 7 commandments of Noah, just in different words. And then the Talmud says he added, Rashi also says that, he added honoring your father and mother, which is now the other tablet, the first tablet. On the left side here, number 5 at the bottom, honoring your father and mother, and then you have up to the Sabbath. So he went through the entire tablet, the second tablet, all the commandments between man and man that Noah knew. And then he added honor father and mother. That actually also Noah knew that commandment. And then the Sabbath. He left the top one, I am Hashem, he left it to Sinai. So, in other words, what Noahide is saying, that they were the status of Bnei Noach, and Hashem wanted to give him the Torah stepwise. So first of all, let's Let them first let's be sure that they keep the 7 commandments of Noah plus the Sabbath. What way should they keep the Sabbath? Here's a crux. So Nachman really says the way Noahide should keep. What is the way of the Sabbath that Noahide should keep? Remembering the story of Genesis, chapter 1. You remember the story of Genesis, where Adam was God created the universe in 6 days, and then Adam was added on day 6 before the Sabbath. He needs to be very good in order to enter the Sabbath. He needs to be very good in this universe to enter the Sabbath. We live on the 6th day, conceptually. Each day of creation is an entire era, billion of years. And we live on the 6th day, and we are moving to the Sabbath, which is the next day of creation, so to speak, where the Sabbath will engulf the entire universe. And we are moving there. And Adam was created to facilitate that thing. You need to be very good in order to enter the Sabbath. Enter the Sabbath means the Sabbath will enter our world. So this is a way to remember the story of Genesis in chapter 1. And that is how Noahide should remember the Sabbath. Also Israel, not only Noahide, but that's the basic notion of the Sabbath that comes from Genesis chapter 1. Fine. So Israel is now commanded now to follow that Noahide laws and to include the Sabbath. Now, again, remember, we are moving toward the Sinai revelation. And what Hashem is treating them leniently, slowly. He prepared them for Sinai. So after giving them those laws, all the tablets on the left, included the 2 on the bottom there, included the Sabbath. And no wonder that the next step, which you didn't read, but the next step is the manna. He gave them the manna. What is special about the manna? There are many things about the manna, but the main thrust of the manna is it stopped on the Sabbath. And they had to prepare the cooking on Friday for the Sabbath. They took it and on Friday they got double dose, and they had to prepare to cook for the Sabbath, because on the Sabbath you don't cook. It means not only the cooking, it's not you need to prepare yourself to enter the Sabbath. So much that not only cooking is forbidden, but even if I want to use a tool, let's say a hammer. Suppose I want to use a hammer. I could allow to use it only if a Friday I prepare myself and I say, okay, on the Sabbath I will use this hammer not to work, but to put it in a corner there to support something. So I can touch the hammer only if I prepare myself ahead to use it. And why is that? Again, to remember the story of chapter 1. We need to, of Genesis. We need to prepare. We are born in here, we are born on Friday, on the 6th day of creation, preparing ourselves to become very good, preparing ourselves to enter the Sabbath. So this idea of preparation on Friday for the Sabbath, it's an awesome idea. It's a part of the story of creation. You don't do it on Sabbath. You don't, when Sabbath is come, it's too late. In order to enter and enjoy the Sabbath, you need to prepare for it. And here is a question that I put now, and I leave it to people more knowledgeable than me, and asking, maybe there is a hint here that Noahide too, we are here on the level of Noahide faith, that Israel now on the same level. So this Noahide too should make a rule for themselves to prepare food for the Sabbath on Friday, and to avoid cooking, and to avoid things that should be done on the Sabbath if not necessary. Not in a sense that you are punished, not that they are put to death, God forbid, but because you remember the story of Genesis, to remind you the story of Genesis. Another law is there that you shouldn't move. You tell Israel not only not to cook on Sabbath, but also don't sit on your place, don't move around. Your place. So the place that you started the Sabbath become your place. And that's also a theme that maybe the Noahide can entertain and think about to adopt. And again, in order to enhance our remembering chapter 1, the story of Genesis, chapter 1, which is the main thing that's how Noah should remember the Sabbath. Fine. So Hashem is now moving up to the greater miracle of the giving the Torah on Sinai. There, he is going to speak in public in a way that no one will have a doubt. Anyone who was there was impacted. One who wasn't there was not impacted. Since only Israel is there, and the Torah concede to reality, in theory, let's put it this way. In theory, and that's what the Midrash says. In theory, all nations should listen to Sinai. The revelation of Sinai was geared to all nations to hear. But the reality was that only Israel was there. Even the nation that heard the story of Split of the Sea, none of them came forward in faith beside Yitro. Yitro was the only person. So the miracle of the split of the sea did not impact the nations, although they saw what happened. And now they didn't come to Sinai to hear it. The only people who were there were Israel. That's why the new revelation of Sinai impact the Israelites that were there, because this was a reality. So everything now on that level, of new level of Sinai, relates to Israel only. Not because Noahide are excluded, but simply they were not there. One day, all nations will join and believe in Hashem. That's a different story. But in time of Sinai, they were not there. So what was the new message of Sinai that relate to Israel only? We said all the commandments were beside only between man and man, including the bottom, their father and mother and Sabbath, were already given in Marah. So the only one left is on top there. I am God your Lord, and don't worship idol. That they heard directly from Hashem. What was a miracle? What happened there? As you remember the story, Hashem came down on the mountain, and Elohim spoke the 10 Commandments. So YHVH was there, came down. Where did she come from? She came from the Sabbath. Remember the story of Genesis is that she entered our world to create man, but she wants to continue entering the world. She wants to not only enter Adam's heart, but enter the 6 days. The 6 days should be full with Hashem. So here she is coming one step more than chapter 1. She's not only here to create Adam as in chapter 1, but she is now entering on the mountain, speaking to the people, and she is now in this universe inside. And her present Kedusha here shed new light on the Sabbath. And that's the main point. The Sabbath that Israel now experiences on Sinai is one step higher than the Sabbath that they experienced as Noahide. Why? Because when the Shekhinah come down into our world, she need to park. She need to become a place to rest. A wing looking for a place to rest. Because in the true Sabbath, in eternal Sabbath, she rests all the time. She doesn't create anything. She's here, when she's entering here, she's looking for a place to rest, to dwell. So here, the first thing she dwells is in our Sabbath. Have you ever thought about it? That the Sabbath, our Sabbath, now on, is not only their prohibition not to do this and that. It's a day that the Shekhinah dwell. She dwell in a dimension of time, that's the Sabbath, make it holier. Right now, she doesn't need a temple. Okay? Right now, nobody speaks about a temple. Nothing in the Ten Commandments is about temple. Says the Rambam. Everything is spiritual. She is here on entering our universe. A holiness, feeling our Sabbath, making it holier. One step holy, one step to, remember, the eternal Sabbath, the futuristic Sabbath, is very holy. Our Sabbath is only kind of a way to remember the story. But when she did, at that point, when she did enter our universe, and she entered our Sabbath became also a place where she dwelled, holiness. So her holiness in the time on the Sabbath make the Sabbath holy. And that's why, we need to treat the Sabbath in a stringent way. It's in a higher level, because it's not only to remember the chapter 1. But to recognize that the Shekhinah is continuing to enter, and she already entered our Sabbath, and it became a holy place in time, temple in time. And you need to treat it more stringently and more respectfully. Those who were not there on Sinai, who didn't hear the story, they were not included because simply it's concession to reality. Reality is that Israelites were only there alone. So reality dictates the law. The law is that only those who heard the Sinai should keep the holiness of the Sabbath in this way. It doesn't mean that Noahide cannot do it, but you need to, if you want to keep the holiness of the Sabbath like Israel, you need to take the full package, because it's not only Sabbath, it's the 613 commandment. So, okay, wow, we have now a miracle greater than any miracle before. Miracle that's supposed to last forever, as Hashem says to Moses, I'll speak to them, they will hear my voice, and they will believe in me and you forever. None of that happened in Egypt. None of that happened on the split of the sea. None of them happened in Mara. All these miracles, as strong as they were, they didn't last long. But the Rambam says, well, this kind of miracle, we remember today. This miracle was effective because we heard it from father to mother, that we are told, we know this, it was valid because our parents tell us, from father to father, and we are sure that it was true. But you know what? The Rambam continued. And now I quote the Rambam from the book of Perplex. He says, you know what? It didn't last long. Moses was still on the mountain. They went out, and when they didn't come down on time, just a few hours, it was late, they made the golden calf. And they not only made it, they call it, these are your God, Israel. These are the one who took you out of Egypt. Moses, well, he's not here. This is your God. And not only they committed the idolatry, but they also dance, orgy, adultery. Not only that, they killed for bloodshed. Once the watershed, you violate one, idolatry, you stumble on number two, adultery, and then on bloodshed for sure. And you ask yourself, and Rambam said, you ask yourself, how is it possible that the one who just had the miracle of God speaking to them just a few days ago, less than a month, something like that. And then suddenly stumble over, Hashem told them, I am your God. I am the one who took you out of Egypt. And number two, don't worship idol. Here they come, and they forget about it, and they stumble again on such a synagogue calf, which means they are not prepared. So the Rambam says, you know what? they originally, Hashem didn't mean sacrifice. The Jeremiah said explicitly that when I took, speaking in the name of Hashem, he said, when I took you out of Egypt, I didn't order you to bring me any sacrifice. So Rambam quoted Jeremiah and said, the such a spiritual faith about the Shekhinah coming down, the merciful Shekhinah coming down to fill our heart. And what is sacrifice doing anything to add to the story? It's nothing to do. It's just a concession to mankind heart. The people of that generation, like all the nations in the world, could not follow a spiritual faith without sacrifice. So that's why only after the golden calf happened, then Hashem told to Moses when he came down the second time on Yom Kippur, he says, build me a tabernacle, and there offer me some, I allow you to bring me sacrifice, a tangible thing, but only to me, not to idols. So I follow according to the Rambam, then the whole idea of the temple in physical dimensions, it's and especially the sacrifice is only a concession, and concession in reality is paramount. The whole parsha is full of concession to reality, starting with Pharaoh, and here again, reality that mankind is not, at that time it was not ready, they were not ready for the spiritual faith. And time will come, Rambam said, when man will advance himself and sacrifice will not talk to them anymore as they did to those generations. Even in Rambam time, people didn't need any more sacrifice. Nobody in the nations used any sacrificial offering to any god. They were either Christian or Muslims, but none of them continue with the sacrifice. So humanity actually advanced. And that's the way we should move. We should become very good spiritually. And there is enough to learn about the Sabbath as a spiritual thing and connect to God through prayer, through understanding, through meditation, through learning, then through sacrifice. So in that case, the Rambam continue, I'm quoting the Rambam, after all, we are commanded to build a temple. So if time arrives and Israel will rule the Holy Land, and we will have opportunity to build a temple, should we rebuild the temple and offer sacrifice? Listen to what he does, Rambam said. Of course we need to listen to do what the commandment. We should build a temple if we can, ready, put the vessels ready to offer them sacrifice. He's very careful in the language. You put the vessels, the gold vessels, ready. If to really offer sacrifice, bloody sacrifice, the blood will cover all the floor there, like it was in a holy temple. You want to see that? Don't do it unless Elijah will come. Elijah will come, tell you if to do it or not. But it's incumbent on us to build a temple if we can, if the nations will allow, if the Arab will allow us. Probably they will not. So, but if we have the upper hand, we should do it, but without, just ready to offer sacrifice. So Now I'm continue. The story doesn't end here, because now the Rambam asks, well, wait a minute. What about the Torah? The Torah says about the Sinai, I will speak to you in public, so they will hear my voice, and they will believe in me and you forever. Did that happen? First of all, it didn't happen right there by the golden calf. We just saw it. But the Rambam says he lived 1,000 years ago, which means still 1,500 years after Sinai. He says, today, in my generation, many people doubt the entire story. They deny the story of Genesis at all. They deny the validity of the Torah, the revelation. They say, we were not there. How come Hashem said that it will be forever? So again, reality. The reality is that mankind, honestly, maybe when you go to the church, you join the crowd. But privately, when it comes to, if I push you to the corner and ask you, do you really believe in the revelation? Tell me, you really believe? Nobody hear you. Most people raise the brow. So how come, what is the way Rambam asks to really believe in God? Not only believe in God, believe in the validity of chapter 1 of the Sabbath. Because the Sabbath story is here at the focus. What should we do to believe in chapter 1, in Elohim, and Yudei Shechina, coming down to the universe? How can we believe in that story? So listen to that, what the Rambam advised us to do. I quote for him at the beginning of, he wrote the Code of Law. It's called Yad HaChazakah, the upper hand. In chapter 1, at the beginning, right there at the front, he advised people to say, if you want to believe in Hashem and in a Shekhinah, in the story of Genesis and so on, use what you have in your hand. Use reality. In reality, we have two things in our hand. We have reality explained by science. Yeah, I live in this universe. I learn physics, mathematics, and I know the law of nature. And I learn reality. And there is another thing in your hand, the Torah, the wisdom of the Torah. So I quote for him, if you want to love Hashem and to believe in him, use science. Science, which means look at the universe, the wisdom of the universe, how Hashem, and learn how Hashem created the universe. And if you understand it, you will come to believe in the truthfulness of God, the story. And on the other hand, use the wisdom of the Torah to see the wisdom to see the print and the fingerprint of Hashem. You see the fingerprint of Hashem in creation and in the Torah. And there is one chapter that's the two of them combined. In Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1 happened to be the only place in the Torah that the science can be compared to what the Torah is telling us. So from science, I can now, only in 21st century, I can now validate every word that the chapter 1 telling me. I know that 6 days are big stages in, as History Channel describe it, they deny that the Bible. They just independently they describe 6 days, 6 stages that are perfectly do match the Moses 6 days. Word by word, it's unbelievable matching. So science support the Torah wisdom on chapter 1. And that's a miracle. I combine here, I think that the miracle that we have chapter 1 is greater miracle than any miracle before. Because all the miracle before, the Exodus, even at Sinai, is gone. I was not there. You were not there. And we are rational people. We want to see something in our hand. And here is something in our hand that will last forever. No, as long as the Torah exists, as long as we learn science, we know the truthfulness of chapter 1. It really happened. The way that Moses described it, how did he know about such a story? He grew up in Pharaoh's home. We know what he learned from Pharaoh's home. Nothing to do what he's speaking about. All the mythical stories of Egyptian, there's nothing to do what he's telling in chapter 1. How did he know to tell a story that matches so perfectly with science? So here's a matching. It's a combination of Torah and science that assure us that chapter 1 is true, that the story of the Sabbath, the chapter 1 end up with the Sabbath, with the Shekhinah entering our world. So, and as long as we use both, as we use reality that we now read, reality of science and reality of the Torah that in our hand, as long as we combine them, and it will lead us to the greatest miracle. The Torah itself, chapter 1 itself, is the greatest miracle. Now I can it shed a different light at what Hashem says. They will believe. I will give you the Torah, and they believe in me and you forever. How? This is it. As long as we have the Torah, there is no explanation to chapter 1. There is nobody can explain how Moses could tell ahead of time, 3,500 years ago, a story that matches so perfectly the History Channel description of what we know from geology, science, everything. History Channel put it forth in such a beautiful way that you're amazed. Okay, so here we have the miracle. Would that impact us? I don't know. It depends on us. It depends if I believe it should impact us. But would be oblivion to that. We will shut our eyes and say, "Oh no, it was just a mythical story. The Torah did." Somebody composed it in the 8th century. It's not true. If you say that, yeah. So you ignore the miracle. Miracle can be ignored. All right, I think any question for me? Any question?